everybody. This is Ryan McClanahan with HistoryThroughCards.com. I hope you're all doing very well today. So, when I was a kid, I used to read Beckett magazines all the time, and I'd really kind of dive into the checklists of the players and the prices in these and the sets and the photographs. And I always kind of um, wondered in the back of my mind, like, I really want to build a collection. I just don't know how to do it. And the prices were really kind of astounding to me. And I used to think, how am I ever going to be able to afford some of this stuff? And, again, I was like, 10, 11, 12, 13. And it's one of the reasons why I really wanted a job so I could afford some of this stuff. Um, I, work, on the other hand, is really, I don't like hard work, especially as a teenager. I was kind of lazy. In any event, the primary motivation was sports cards, and so I'd look over a lot of the prices and the photographs, as I said, and some of the players. I really wanted to find out more about these guys and who they were, and so I started to pick out a player here and there and just study and check out what their career was like. And a few of these guys, Duke Snyder, Bob Feller, obviously Ted Williams, I already knew about since I was a little kid. Really kind of same with Duke Snyder as well. And one of the players that I came across was Brooks Robinson, and I kept on hearing the name Brooks Robinson, and I was like, okay, I'll check out his stats and what he's all about, and it turned out that he's one of the greatest third basemen that ever played, and I actually years later had met Brooks Robinson a couple of times at autograph signings and did some artwork for him as well. One instance, which I think was really kind of telling of the person who he is, and not just as a ball player, was that during a public signing, he says, "Excuse me, everybody," and he gets up out of his chair, walks over to Cam Neely, and shakes his hand and congratulates him on getting into the Hockey Hall of Fame. And I think that was one of the most classiest things I've seen in a while. Usually you don't see stuff like that, but that's Brooks Robinson. And if you guys haven't seen his Hall of Fame speech, you can go on YouTube and check it out because it's really cool too. Brooks Robinson is obviously one of the greatest third basemen of all time, and I was trying to think who could be better than Brooks Robinson. Obviously, I never saw Brooks Robinson play, but um, I would seem to think that Pie Trainer is probably the best third baseman of the first half of the 20th century, and then Brooks Robinson, the best third baseman in the second half of the 20th century. And you probably have a smattering of a few others as well. I don't think there are a whole lot of third basemen in the Hall of Fame. I know George Kell. I've met George Kell a couple of times. He was a great guy, a great signer. He was great to deal with too. But Brooks Robinson really, to me, um, fit the mold of what you want in a third baseman. I've heard he was a kind of a light hitting third baseman, but I'm not even entirely sure about that. I think 1964 he got the MVP. In any event, I really wanted to study and find out what players I could add to my collection. And this is when I'm like 14 years old and really kind of getting into vintage. Now, at the time, the baseball players strike of 1994 occurs, and I want really nothing to do with modern cards. So that was actually a great segue for me to get into vintage. And one of the players that I chose was Brooks Robinson. And so I think one of my first cards I ever picked up was, well, it was a 1956 Topps Tommy Brewer, a pitcher for the Red Sox. I think he was decent too. And the second card I picked up was this right here, and this is the 1963 Flair Brooks Robinson. It's actually a really decent card, and I love the design. A lot of this set I actually have. This is my original from when I was 14 years old, and so if you do end up picking up some of the 1963 Flair, uh, it, the photography is great, the design is great as well, and it's got a great back history as well. On the backs of these cards, there's like I think like a faded line or I don't know, some kind of weird looking green color. I can't quite describe exactly what, but the backs can fade out a little bit. This was this was my first, and it wasn't my last because I ended up really kind of doing a year by year run of Brooks Robinson. One of the cards that I really kind of tried to focus on was his rookie card, but it was always out of my reach until one day I was at a show and I see a Brooks Robinson card that I just kind of happened to ask on, and I was thinking that it would uh, be well out of my price range, and obviously because I have it, it wasn't, and it was his rookie card here, and I got it for 35 bucks, and it's a decent card. It's again, it's a great design. I do like the 57 tops quite a bit, just for the photography and the history of the card itself. And this card is actually it's 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 okay. It's in a good condition. So um, there's really like maybe one minor flaw, but the corners are are a little off, and that's fine by me, and it's not really that well centered. But as I always tell you guys, to grab the card when you can in any condition, and then you can upgrade later. I don't plan on upgrading this card though. I've had it for quite some time, and a Brooks Robinson rookie is a Brooks Robinson rookie. For me, I'm fine with it being in good condition. And what really bothered me though about it was that I paid $35 for that card and I had to pay $40 for the 58. And the 58 bothers me quite a bit because Brooks Robinson looks like a goof in this card. In the photo is just, I've seen the original photo and I was thinking, tops, couldn't you guys have had a better photo for this card? Because this card is pretty cheap. At least it was. For me, it was 40 bucks, and I got a little annoyed at that. Again, it's not a flattering photo of Brooks Robinson. In any event, after that, I ended up grabbing his 1959 and 1960 and 61 tops, and I do like his 1960 quite a bit. I have a really sharp 59, which is in a box somewhere, and I would love to show you guys that. I just can't find it. One of the cards that I always heard about growing up, and I really never saw it, and it's the purpose of this video, in fact, was the 1967 Topps Brooks Robinson, and it's kind of like a Bigfoot sighting, really, or a UFO sighting. Yeah, oh, I saw a 67 Topps Brooks Robinson. Oh, yeah, I saw Bigfoot. Hey, where's your photo? It's that kind of thing. And so I recently received a article from Chris from Stories in Cardboard about two collectors who were discussing this very thing, not UFOs and Bigfoot, but the 67 Topps Brooks Robinson, which might as well be, UFOs and Bigfoot at this point. Um, I've never seen this card. In fact, uh, it's really eluded me over the last years, in fact. But I wanted to read this article, and I also want to get you guys' opinion as well on this card and see whether or not you think that there's something funny going on with the 67 Topps Brooks Robinson. I think Chris had actually mentioned Woody Gelman, one of our hobby pioneers, who had secretly, I guess, stashed uh, boxes or hoarded these cards. I'm not entirely sure. I'd love to get your guys' take on this. And Chris, I know you have a take on this too. And you know, Chris could be right for all I know. Um, Woody Gelman or Woody Gelman. Again, if you guys know his the proper pronunciation of Woody Gelman or Gelman's name, let me know his last name. Because I butcher names like some people cut meat. So anyway, um, let me read that to you guys and give me a couple of comments below and see what you guys think, because I always love to have a good dialogue going on uh, between myself and my viewers, and I'm pretty decent at getting back to all you guys. So let me read that. This is from the 1979 Sports Collectors Digest. Brooks Robinson, 1967 Topps card is truly rare by Gary Swatsky and Dwayne Shoren. We are writing in response to the many published letters and columns we have seen recently decrying prices of the 1967 Brooks Robinson card and ridiculing the gullibility of those who are willing to pay such prices. In 1972, we realized that the only way we were going to be able to afford the increasing costs of our addiction to baseball cards was to become dealers and thus defray the cost of our habit. As we perceived an increasing desire in the card collecting public for superstars, we thought we would begin buying cards of those players we expected would attain superstar status within the next couple of years. One of the players so chosen was Brooks Robinson. Over the following 4 years, we randomly purchased more than 2,000 Brooks Robinson cards. Thinking at the time then was right to sell these, we sorted the cards and found to our dismay that the 1967 card was mysteriously missing. In fact, being unable to even visualize the card, we concluded that it was possible that we had never seen one. This may not seem extraordinary until one considers that during the period from 1972 to 1976, we attended more than 60 baseball card conventions and perused the stocks of most of the major dealers in the country many times over. The stocks of all the local dealers with whom we had come into contact, and the accumulations and collections of walk-ins too numerous to count. After scouring perhaps 100 million cards for potential superstars, we could not even be sure that we had ever seen a 1967 Brooks Robinson card. We couldn't believe it either. We decided to withhold from sale our Brooks Robinson cards until we could look more closely into the apparently phenomenal oversight. During the period 1977 to 1978, we attended an additional 75 conventions and made it our first order of business at each of them to search every table and walk in for the card in question. We fear that we must now be counted among the quote hoarders unquote, for after carefully picking through at least another 100 million cards, we are able to purchase a quote hoard unquote of 17 1967 Brooks Robinson cards, even though we bought without regard to condition. By way of comparison, we calculate that we saw for sale at least 200 of the 1954 Bowman Ted Williams card. It is true, quite a few people are sitting on stacks of 1967 Brooks Robinsons. Then we do stand in awe of them by virtue of the immense conspiracy that they were unable to organize, namely that by 1972 they had accumulated nearly all the card in question and decided simultaneously to withhold them from sale. If, on the other hand, there is but one quote hoarder unquote, then some person of truly demonic proportions is afoot, as this person before 1972 was able to relieve almost all of the nation's dealers and collectors of their 1967 Topps Brooks Robinson cards. And these conclusions are made even more sinister as we know first, no, not one card of Brooks Robinson among the 60,000. It seems that our demon struck very early and was able to begin, quote, hoarding, unquote, even before Topps began packing. We do not have the faintest idea why, but we do attest that the 1967 Brooks Robinson card, even when compared to the regular issue cards toughest to obtain, extremely scarce. If you have one, do not be duped into thinking that your card's value is widely inflated, as it has been said by know-it-alls who think that they can influence the value of cards. Our conclusions are based on years of rigorously obtained evidence. Anything, the card is still remarkably underpriced. If you do not have the card, don't be fooled into thinking that you'll be able to pick one up cheap when the hoarder or hoarders begin to flood the market with them, unless, of course, you believe in demons. If you are not convinced, offer to buy at $100 per card and see how many you can get. If you are lucky enough to get a few, you will certainly have obtained excellent trading material with which to improve your collection in the future as this card continues to race towards its true relative value. So this is really interesting, and I have no explanation whatsoever as to why this particular card is so tough. I know the 1967 Topps high numbers are difficult, but in this case, um, there's something that seems to be missing from the story. Now, Chris from Stories and Cardboard may be correct on this. You might be in the right direction. I know that Woody Gelman or Woody Gelman did have connections, direct connections to Topps. In fact, being the art director and R&D director. And first off, he's got a fairly lengthy hobby history, and he did have a lot of rarities in his collection. And I was also told too that his warehouse burned down, and who knows what was in that warehouse. Now, there's also stories, particularly from Chris, who had told me. I wasn't aware of this, by the way, that a lot of collectors had for years said that they could smell smoke on their cards, and which so that kind of tells me that there was a warehouse fire, um, and I'm not entirely sure or convinced yet that Gelman was hoarding 1967 Topps specifically for the Brooks Robinson card, but I'm open to all sorts of possibilities here because I just don't know, and it would be really fascinating if we actually knew why this particular card is this rare. Um, Again, I've never seen it in person, and I've seen it online only. So, guys, let me know what your thoughts are on this. Again, I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about this. And until the next time, I'll see you later. And thank you so much for stopping by, too. I always appreciate it. So, have a good one, guys. Thank you. Bye.